The void between stars held its breath as the HSS Phantom sliced through space, its experimental quantum-dampening hull absorbing any trace emissions that might betray its presence. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the bridge's main viewport, her weathered features reflected against the backdrop of unfamiliar constellations. After 15 years of development and 6 months of shakedown trials, humanity's first true stealth vessel was about to prove its worth. "Status report," Sarah called out, her voice steady despite the tension coiling in her stomach. "All systems nominal, Commander," Lieutenant James O'Neill responded from his station. "Stealth systems functioning at optimal levels. We're completely invisible to conventional sensors." The Phantom was tiny compared to traditional military vessels, barely larger than an old seafaring destroyer. But what it lacked in size, it made up for in innovation. Every cubic centimeter had been engineered with a single purpose: to slip through enemy defenses undetected. "New contact." The sensor officer's voice cut through the quiet hum of bridge operations. "Massive energy signature at bearing 340 Mark II." Sarah's pulse quickened. On screen, the main display flickered to life, revealing a sight that made her breath catch. A vessel that dwarfed the Phantom by orders of magnitude hung in space before them, its hull gleaming with an otherworldly iridescence. As they watched, more ships emerged from what appeared to be tiers in space itself, a fleet of giants. "Multiple contacts," the sensor officer reported, his voice tight. "Reading 20. No, 30 capital ships. Configuration unknown. Definitely not human." First contact. After centuries of searching the stars, humanity had finally encountered another civilization, and judging by the size and sophistication of their vessels, they were far more advanced. "Maintain stealth protocols," Sarah ordered. "Let's see what we're dealing with before we make ourselves known." The alien fleet moved with precise coordination, forming a pattern that suggested both military discipline and technological sophistication. Then, without warning, a beam of energy lanced out from the lead vessel, passing harmlessly through the space near the Phantom. "They're scanning the sector," Lieutenant O'Neill reported, "but our stealth systems are holding. They can't see us." A new voice filled the bridge, alien yet perfectly understandable, suggesting some form of advanced translation technology. "This is Supreme Commander Xarkalin of the Dominion Fleet. To the primitive species inhabiting this sector, your presence has been noted. Prepare to receive our envoys. Resistance would be unfortunate." Sarah's jaw tightened. The casual arrogance in the alien's tone was unmistakable. They hadn't even bothered to look for a response, assuming their technological superiority made dialogue unnecessary. "Open a channel," she ordered. "Let's introduce ourselves properly." "Channel open, Commander." Sarah squared her shoulders. "Supreme Commander Xarkalin, this is Commander Sarah Chen of the Human Space Service vessel Phantom. We receive your transmission and welcome the opportunity for peaceful dialogue between our species." There was a moment of silence, then a burst of what might have been laughter. A holographic image materialized on the bridge, a towering figure with crystalline features and eyes that glowed like dying stars. A vessel so small we cannot even detect it. Xarkalin's translated voice dripped with amusement. "How quaint. Your species must be even more primitive than we assumed. Perhaps we should simply proceed with integration now, spare you the pretense of diplomacy." Sarah felt her crew's anger, but kept her own voice level. "Supreme Commander, I suggest you not confuse size with capability, or invisibility with primitiveness. Bold words from a species that hasn't even mastered basic gravitic propulsion," Xarkalin replied. "Your vessel is interesting, I admit, a tiny thing playing at stealth. But the Dominion has encountered many races, Commander Chen. All eventually learn their place. Perhaps," Sarah said carefully, "you should consider that being underestimated has its advantages." The alien commander made a dismissive gesture. "You will remain in this sector and await our diplomatic vessel. Any attempt to flee or resist will be taken as hostile action. Remember, Commander, We can destroy your little ship with a single shot. The hologram vanished, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Orders, Commander, O'Neill asked quietly. Sarah studied the alien fleet on the main display, her mind racing. The Dominion clearly had them outgunned and likely possessed technology far beyond human understanding. But they'd also just revealed their greatest weakness, their absolute certainty of their own superiority. Send a tight beam transmission to command, she said finally. Tell them we've made contact with an advanced alien civilization. But add this, they're powerful, yes, but they've already made their first mistake. She allowed herself a small smile. They laughed at our ship. The Dominion's diplomatic vessel loomed over the designated meeting station, its crystalline surface refracting starlight in impossible patterns. Commander Sarah Chen watched from the Phantom's bridge as their shuttle approached the neutral facility, her mind already analyzing every detail of their supposedly superior adversaries. All sensor arrays running at maximum sensitivity. Dr. Maya Patel reported from the science station. The quantum physicist had insisted on joining this mission, arguing that understanding alien technology could be crucial to humanity's survival. Now her dark eyes sparkled with intellectual hunger as she studied the readings. Their energy signatures are fascinating. Fascinating how? Sarah asked, recognizing the particular tone in Maya's voice, the one that meant she'd noticed something important. They're incredibly powerful, yes, but also incredibly inefficient. It's like they're using a fusion reactor to power a light bulb, brute force where precision would serve better. Maya's fingers danced across her console. And there's something else. Their systems are all connected through some kind of quantum network. Sophisticated, but vulnerable. They're so confident in their technological superiority that they've sacrificed redundancy for power. One critical failure could cascade through their entire system. Sarah filed that information away as their shuttle docked with the station. She'd chosen a small diplomatic team. Herself, Dr. Patel, and Lieutenant O'Neill. The fewer people at risk, the better. The station's interior was clearly designed to intimidate, with soaring ceilings and walls that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Their Dominion hosts towered over them, their crystalline forms radiating power and ancient knowledge. "Welcome, primitive ones," Ambassador Zareth said, his translated voice managing to make even a greeting sound condescending. "We trust you're prepared to discuss the terms of your species' integration into the Dominion." "Actually," Sarah replied smoothly, "we're here to propose an alliance of equals." The assembled Dominion representatives erupted in what their translators rendered as laughter. Sarah maintained her diplomatic smile, but her eyes never stopped moving, cataloging details. The way their bodies pulsed with energy. The subtle flickers in the station's lighting that corresponded with their movements. "Your courage is admirable," Zareth said finally. "But surely you understand the reality of your situation. Our smallest vessel could obliterate your entire fleet. Size and power aren't everything, Ambassador." Sarah gestured to the stunning view of space visible through the station's transparent walls. "Humanity has survived and thrived by understanding that often the smallest thing can change everything. A virus can bring down a giant. A single spark can start a fire." Maya, meanwhile, had been quietly taking readings with a device disguised as a standard datavat. Her slight nod to Sarah confirmed their suspicions. The Dominion's technological advantage was real, but it had critical weaknesses. The diplomatic meeting continued for hours, a dance of veiled threats and false humility. The Dominion representatives spoke at length about their achievements, their power, their destiny to guide lesser species. Sarah encouraged them, knowing that every boast revealed more about their technology and, more importantly, their psychology. Back aboard the Phantom, the team assembled in the secure briefing room. "Their entire civilization runs on quantum-entangled networks," Maya explained, projecting a complex diagram. "It's brilliant engineering, but they've become completely dependent on it. Their weapons, their drives, their life support, everything is connected." "Connected means vulnerable," O'Neill observed. But we'd need to get past their defenses to exploit that weakness. Sarah studied the tactical display, a plan already forming. They think we're primitive, barely worth noticing. Their scans can't detect us when we're running silent. A smile touched her lips. And they've been kind enough to invite us to tour their flagship tomorrow. Commander, Maya said slowly, are you suggesting we use a diplomatic mission as cover for sabotage? Not sabotage, Sarah corrected. Intelligence gathering. If we can get detailed scans of their quantum network from the inside. She turned to Maya. How long would you need? 10 minutes, maybe less. But Commander, if they catch us. They won't, Sarah assured her. They're so convinced of their superiority that they won't even consider the possibility that we could understand their technology, let alone pose a threat to it. She straightened in her chair. Humanity didn't get to the stars by backing down from challenges. We got here by being clever, adaptable, and willing to take calculated risks. As her team began preparing for their covert mission, Sarah reflected on the irony of their situation. The Dominion's greatest weapon, their absolute certainty in their own superiority, was about to become their greatest vulnerability. They saw humanity as primitive, unthreatening, barely worth their attention. They would learn, too late, that underestimating humans was a fatal mistake. The Dominion flagship's corridors stretched before them like arteries of living crystal, pulsing with energy that Maya's hidden sensors eagerly devoured. Commander Sarah Chen walked beside Ambassador Zareth, maintaining an expression of appropriate awe while her mind calculated timing and trajectories. As you can see, Zareth gestured expansively. Our quantum integration allows us to channel power throughout the vessel with perfect efficiency. Your own crude fusion reactors must seem like children's toys in comparison. Remarkable, Sarah agreed, noting how the energy pulses synchronized with the ship's systems. We can only dream of such advancement. Behind them, Maya and O'Neill played their parts perfectly, the overwhelmed scientist and the protective security officer, their true purposes hidden behind carefully crafted personas. Maya's modified datapad continued gathering crucial data about the Dominion's quantum network. Perhaps in a few centuries, Zareth said magnanimously, your species will be ready to understand even the basic principles of our technology. Until then, the Dominion will guide you, as we have guided many primitive races before. Sarah suppressed a smile as Maya's hand signal confirmed they'd gotten everything they needed. The Dominion's patronizing attitude had made their job almost too easy. No one bothered to question why a primitive scientist would want to take so many readings of their incomprehensible technology. Your generosity humbles us, Ambassador, Sarah said, bowing slightly. But I fear we've imposed on your time enough for one day. Back aboard the Phantom, Maya's excitement was barely containable as she transferred her findings to the ship's computers. It's brilliant and horrifying at the same time, she explained, bringing up complex diagrams. Their quantum network is like a nervous system spanning their entire fleet. Every ship, every weapon, every system is connected through quantum entanglement. Which means, O'Neill prompted, which means they're all vulnerable to the same disruption, Maya said, her eyes gleaming. Their technology is incredibly advanced, but they never developed countermeasures against quantum interference because they never imagined anyone could understand their systems well enough to attack them. Sarah studied the tactical displays. How long to modify our stealth systems to generate the interference we need? 6 hours, Maya replied. But Commander, we'll only get one shot at this. Once they realize what we're doing, they won't realize anything until it's too late, Sarah said firmly. Their arrogance has made them blind. We'll use that. The next 6 hours were a blur of focused activity as Maya and her team modified the Phantom's quantum dampening systems. Sarah used the time to plan their attack vector, knowing they would need perfect positioning to affect the entire Dominion fleet. Modifications complete, Maya reported finally. But we'll have to drop our stealth field to generate enough power for the quantum pulse. How long will we be visible? 3 seconds, maybe 4. Sarah nodded grimly. That's 3 seconds too long, but it'll have to do. She opened the ship-wide comm. All hands, battle stations. This is what we trained for. The Phantom glided silently through space, its stealth systems making it invisible to the Dominion sensors. The massive alien ships hung in formation, their crews never suspecting that their primitive visitors were about to turn their own technology against them. Position achieved, O'Neill reported. We're within optimal range of their command and control nodes. Sarah took a deep breath. This was the moment that would determine not just their fate, but potentially the fate of all humanity. Begin power transfer to quantum pulse systems. On my mark, drop stealth field and fire. The bridge hummed with tension as power built in their modified systems. They would have one chance. Either their plan would work, or the Dominion would obliterate them in seconds. Ready on your command, Maya said, her fingers poised over her console. Sarah watched the tactical display, waiting for the precise moment when the Dominion ship's quantum network synchronization would be at its peak. Time seemed to slow as she counted down in her head. Mark. The Phantom's stealth field dropped, and for a brief moment, they were exposed, a tiny ship daring to challenge giants. Before the Dominion could react, Maya activated the quantum pulse. Space itself seemed to shudder as waves of quantum interference radiated from the Phantom, catching the Dominion fleet in mid-synchronization. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. Ship after ship went dark as their quantum networks collapsed, the cascading failures spreading through their perfectly integrated systems like a virus. Weapons, engines, life support. Everything connected to their quantum network began to fail. Direct hit on their command and control systems, O'Neill reported, his voice tight with excitement. Their fleet is going dark. Through the viewport, Sarah watched as the mighty Dominion vessels began to drift, their once brilliant hulls now dark and lifeless. Their perfect integration, their greatest pride, had become their undoing. Quantum pulse successful, Maya confirmed. Their networks are completely scrambled. It'll take them days to restore basic functions, weeks to rebuild their quantum integration. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Send a message to their flagship. Tell them. She paused, considering. Tell them that primitive doesn't mean helpless, and that humanity is not to be underestimated. The Dominion's response came not in words, but in fury. Despite their crippled quantum networks, their ships still possessed enough backup systems to pose a deadly threat. Energy beams lanced through space as their massive vessels turned their conventional weapons on the Phantom. Evasive maneuvers, Sarah ordered, gripping her command chair as the ship corkscrewed through the barrage. Status report. Multiple incoming projectiles. O'Neill called out, his hands flying over the tactical controls. They're trying to saturate the area, make it impossible to dodge. The Phantom shuddered as a near miss disrupted their gravitic field. They had struck a devastating blow against the Dominion, but the alien fleet's sheer firepower meant they couldn't celebrate yet. Their backup systems are more resilient than we anticipated, Maya reported, studying her readings. They're adapting, rerouting power through conventional circuits. We have maybe 10 minutes before they restore partial quantum functionality. Sarah's mind raced. They had succeeded in humbling the Dominion, but now they needed to survive long enough to ensure humanity would benefit from that victory. New contacts. O'Neill's voice cut through her thoughts. Multiple signatures at extreme range. It's the rest of the human fleet. A smile touched Sarah's lips. The quantum pulse had been detected by Earth's long-range sensors, exactly as planned. Now reinforcements were arriving. Ships that had been modified based on the data they transmitted during their diplomatic mission. This is Admiral Hassan of the Earth Defense Fleet. A familiar voice came through the comm. Looks like you could use some help, Commander Chen. Your timing is impeccable. Admiral, Sarah replied, watching as human vessels emerged from FTL, their hulls gleaming with newly integrated quantum dampening technology. They were still smaller than the Dominion ships, but now they were armed with the knowledge of how to fight them effectively. The Dominion fleet's response was predictable. They turned their overwhelming firepower toward the new arrivals, expecting to easily destroy these primitive vessels. But humanity had learned from the Phantom's success. All ships execute Operation Slingshot, Admiral Hassan ordered. The human fleet split into smaller groups, using their superior maneuverability to weave between the massive Dominion vessels. Each group targeted specific weak points identified in the Phantom's scans, striking with precision rather than power. Their formation is breaking down, O'Neill reported with satisfaction. They can't coordinate without their quantum network. Each ship is fighting independently. Sarah watched as the battle unfolded, humanity's smaller ships darting between their massive opponents like wolves around wounded bears. The Dominion's technological superiority meant nothing without the coordination they relied upon so heavily. "Commander," Maya called out suddenly, "I'm detecting power spikes in their flagship. They're attempting to force restart their quantum network. That could restore their coordination," Sarah realized. Or cause a catastrophic overload," Maya finished. "They're desperate enough to try it." Sarah opened a channel to the Dominion flagship. "Supreme Commander Tarkalin, cease your network restart immediately. Your systems can't handle a cold start under these conditions." The response came in a burst of static-filled rage. "You dare to lecture us on our own technology? We who have ruled the stars for millennia. We will not be humbled by primitives. All ships, clear the blast radius," Sarah ordered. "They're not going to listen." The human fleet pulled back just as a blinding surge of energy erupted from the Dominion flagship. For a moment, its crystalline hull blazed with power as the forced quantum restart began to cascade through its systems. Then, with a silent flash that seemed to tear at the fabric of space itself, the massive vessel broke apart. The secondary explosions rippled through the remainder of the Dominion fleet as the quantum backlash followed the remnants of their network connections. Ship after ship went dark or suffered catastrophic systems failures. "Dominion fleet is signaling surrender," O'Neill reported, his voice quiet with awe. "Their remaining ships are powering down weapons." Sarah stood from her command chair, watching as the mighty Dominion armada hung broken in space, defeated not by superior firepower, but by their own arrogance and humanity's resourcefulness. "Open a channel to all Dominion vessels," she ordered. When the connection was established, she spoke clearly and firmly. "This is Commander Chen. Your fleet is disabled, your flagship destroyed by your own hubris. You thought size and power were everything, that your technology made you invincible. You never considered that a smaller, more adaptable opponent could turn your own strengths against you." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Humanity accepts your surrender. But remember this. We achieved this victory not because we were stronger, but because you underestimated us. That was your first and last mistake." 3 months after the Battle of Seoul, Commander Sarah Chen stood in Earth's orbital diplomatic center, watching as representatives from a dozen formerly subjugated species gathered for the first Interstellar Coalition Summit. The Dominion's defeat had sent shockwaves through the galaxy, inspiring other primitive races to assert their independence. "Still feels surreal, doesn't it?" Dr. Maya Patel said, joining her at the viewport. The quantum physicist had become something of a celebrity in scientific circles after her groundbreaking work in understanding and countering Dominion technology. "The galaxy certainly looks different now," Sarah agreed, watching as ships of various designs moved through space. No longer segregated by technological sophistication or size, but working together as equals. The Phantom had become a symbol of this new era, its name synonymous with the idea that size and raw power weren't everything. The ship's success had led to a revolution in spacecraft design across multiple species, emphasizing efficiency and adaptability over brute force. "The Dominion delegation has arrived," Lieutenant O'Neill announced, approaching with a datapad. "They're different from what we remember." Sarah nodded. The defeat had transformed Dominion society. Their rigid hierarchy had crumbled along with their quantum network, replaced by a more adaptable and humble approach to interstellar relations. The crystalline giants who now entered the chamber bore little resemblance to the arrogant conquerors they'd faced 3 months ago. Commander Chen, former Ambassador Zareth, greeted her, his once condescending tone replaced by genuine respect. Or should I say Admiral Chen? Sarah touched the new rank insignia on her collar. The promotion's still fresh, though I hear you've gone through some changes yourself. First speaker Zareth. The Dominion representative inclined his head. When one's entire worldview is shattered, one must either adapt or perish. Your victory taught us that true strength lies not in overwhelming power, but in innovation, adaptability, and the wisdom to learn from those we once dismissed. The summit session that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Species that had once cowered before the Dominion now spoke as equals, sharing their unique perspectives and technologies. The humans' victory had proven that every civilization, regardless of their apparent level of advancement, had something valuable to contribute. We've received the preliminary survey reports from the Joint Exploration Mission, Maya reported during a break. The combination of Dominion quantum technology with human stealth systems and Proxian sensor arrays is producing remarkable results. We're mapping regions of space that were previously uncharted. Sarah smiled, remembering how the Dominion had once laughed at humanity's primitive ships. Now those same ships were leading the way into unknown territories, their size allowing them to go where larger vessels couldn't. "There's a message for you from Earth Command," O'Neill said, handing her a secure datapad. "They're fast-tracking the expansion of the stealth fleet. The Phantom class is going into full production. With improvements, I hope," Sarah said, scanning the specifications. "Of course," Maya grinned. "We've incorporated everything we learned from the battle. The new ships will be even more efficient, more adaptable. But we're keeping them small. It turns out that was one of our greatest advantages." As the summit continued, Sarah reflected on how much had changed. The galaxy had learned that true advancement wasn't measured by the size of one's ships or the power of one's weapons, but by the ability to innovate, adapt, and grow. The Dominion's mistake hadn't just been underestimating humanity. It had been believing that their way was the only way forward. "We're receiving reports from the outer colonies," O'Neill reported. "More species are applying to join the coalition. It seems our victory inspired a lot of other primitive races to stand up for themselves." "Good," Sarah said firmly. "The galaxy's a big place. There's room for all kinds of approaches, all kinds of solutions. Sometimes the smallest ship can change the course of history." As she looked out at the assembled representatives of a new, more equal galaxy, Sarah thought about the lesson they'd all learned. Size, power, and advanced technology meant nothing without the wisdom to use them properly. The Dominion had thought their greatest strength was their superiority, but that had been their downfall. Humanity's greatest strength had been the very thing their enemies had mocked: their ability to do more with less, to innovate rather than dominate, to turn perceived weakness into actual strength. The HSS Phantom still patrolled the stars, a constant reminder that appearances could be deceiving. Its small size, once a source of alien derision, had become a symbol of a greater truth. Never underestimate those you think beneath you. For in the vast expanse of space, it wasn't the biggest or the strongest who survived, but those most willing to adapt, to learn, and to grow.